Whoa, we're not quite there right yet, but in this video I am going to show you how to use ND filters with the Osmo Pocket, more specifically the Polar Pro ND filters. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, I just got this box from Polar Pro, so I'm going to open up and show you what's inside. One thing I will say before I unbox it, Polar Pro has the best reputation for DJI products and for drone products in terms of having the best glass. So if you're looking for ND filters for your drone or your DJI product, I would recommend Polar Pro because of the quality of glass. But even if a company has a good reputation, it's still worth testing it out to see how it holds up. So we're gonna do that in this video. All right, and there we are. So inside, I have the ND4, 8, and 16. And then I also have the ND 32, 64, and then the 32 and 64 with the ND filter and the Polarizer. So basically, as the numbers go up, it's gonna get darker. So I always like to say that ND filters are kind of like sunglasses for your lens. So looking at these Polar Pro filters, you can see that ND4 is gonna be the least amount of darkness. Then ND8 is gonna be darker. ND16 is gonna be even darker. And then we go all the way up to 64, which is gonna stop down the most levels of darkness. And then if you look at ND32 PL and ND64 PL, that means it's gonna have both the ND filter, which is gonna make it darker. It's not gonna affect the colors or anything else, but the Polarizer will. The Polarizer will really make the colors more vivid, especially the blues and the greens. So you can expect to see plants, trees, the ocean, the sky, anything like that that's blue or green, it's gonna pop out a little more. And one thing I will say, these Polarizers come in these really nice cases. So when you open it up, it feels like a lot of quality. It has this little magnet. When it shuts, it just stays shut. And then you open it up and there they are. And then most of all inside, when you take it out, you're gonna see that it comes in this nice little plastic case. So having this plastic case, it holds up to 6 different filters. So if I wanted to, I could even take some filters from over here and I could put them in here, or I could just select my favorite filters, put them in here, and then go. And the one I'm talking about right now is the 32 and the 64 with both the NDs and the Polarizer. So this other case has 3 inside. Or actually, let's take a look at that one more time. Alright guys, what's going on? It's early in the morning, and as you can see, we have the beautiful skyrise right here, Miami skyline. And I set up the Osmo Pocket right here. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take a few pictures first to show you that I'm not really using that slow of a shutter. Even though it's early in the morning, you still need an ND filter to make the ocean look kind of silky smooth. So right now you can see all these ripples, all these waves in the ocean, and basically what I want to do is I want to make it look more like a silky smooth lake instead of an ocean. So I don't want to see any of the ripples. I just want that to be completely flat, completely smooth. In order to do that, we need to use an ND filter. So I'm going to start with an ND, I'd say ND8, because it's already bright enough in the morning that I think we need an ND8. And then I think we need to slow it down to at least a couple seconds. So I'm going to try to slow it down to at least 2 seconds, my shutter speed, but we'll make adjustments as we go. So first I'm going to take this picture. This is what it looks like, and I'm about 1/8 of a second. And as you can see, the skyline is super sharp, and so are the waves. We want to get rid of them, so I'm going to put the ND8 filter on the Osmo Pocket right now, and we'll go from there. I have my ND8 filter right here. I'm going to pull it out right now. Okay, and super small, by the way. You don't realize how small these filters are, but the Osmo Pocket's so small. So I'm going to put that away. So the nice thing about this ND filter is that it's very magnetic. So all I have to do, just have the Polar Pro side on the top, and I just stick it to the front, and there it is. It just sticks right to the Osmo Pocket. All right, these birds are going crazy. So now that it's on the front, I'm gonna take the picture. We'll see how it turns out. This is the ND8. All right, so the first thing I do is go into manual mode, and then I slow my shutter down all the way to about 1 second. Okay, I just look for the right exposure. That looks about right. And then I just take the picture. And as you can see, I put it on timer, so I'm not gonna touch it. So there's gonna be no movement during that 1 second that the picture is taken. Once the picture is taken, that's what we get. And as you can see, the ocean is much smoother in comparison with the shot that I took without the filter. You can see with the Polar Pro filter, I let a lot more light in. And obviously I took these at 2 different times. So it's gonna be, the sun was slightly different, but not that much. But because the ND filter is on, I have to use a slower shutter. So I'm letting light in over a longer period of time. And it looks more cinematic to my eye because the light is coming in over a longer period of time. It's getting all that stuff in the atmosphere from the sun and the light, and it's creating that more cinematic look. And I really like the ocean being nice and slow. However, I want it kind of slower than that. I want it to look even more like a lake, even more silky smooth. So in order to do that, I have to slow my shutter down even more, but when I slow my shutter down, more light comes in. So that means I need a darker ND filter. So instead of an ND8, I need something like an ND16 or even a 32 and a 64. And also I need to be aware that the sun is rising, so it's constantly getting brighter. So because of that, I need to use a darker ND filter. So the combination of the sun rising and it getting brighter and the fact that I wanted to slow the shutter down even more, I'm gonna have to use a much darker ND filter. All right, so what I noticed is the sun is rising really fast. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put an ND64, and that way we can really slow down the shutter and get a nice silky smooth look. So I'm gonna do that right now. So after sunrise, it gets bright very quickly because the sun rises so fast. So I had to use an ND64 filter because this was the darkest ND filter that I had, stopping down 6 stops, which means it makes it much darker so I can properly expose for the brightness around me. So I wanted to use as slow a shutter as possible, so I stopped it down to 2 seconds. And this was the slowest shutter I could use while still properly exposing the image with the Osmo Pocket. And as you can see, because the shutter speed is slower at 2 seconds, the ocean is much smoother. If I had gone down to 4 seconds or even like 7 or 8 seconds, that ocean would have looked completely like a lake, completely smooth. Unfortunately, this ND filter was only a 64, so I only could stop it down for 2 seconds. Now, if I had taken this picture earlier, I could have used a much slower shutter, allowing more light to come in because it was darker outside, and then I would have had a totally smooth looking ocean. So if you want that nice, smooth, glassy look with the ocean or with the clouds, it's good to use an ND filter like a 32 or a 64 or sometimes even higher, depending on what time of the day that you shoot. Now remember, the faster the water moves, the slower the shutter needs to be to make it have that smooth look. But later in this video, I'm gonna show you how I went to South Beach where the waves were moving so fast, but because my shutter was so slow, I was able to get a nice, smooth, glassy look that couldn't have been done without an ND filter. I do have to say, these are super easy to put in and out. This little material inside, it's almost like a spongy material, but it's also very firm, and it's easy to put these filters in and out, and the magnetic strip makes it really quick to put it on the Osmo Pocket. So I gotta say, for convenience and quickness, this is really great. All right, so using these ND filters, I have the ND64 on right now. It works great for photography, for getting that nice, silky, smooth look. But for video, it's still too dark. So because of the 180-degree rule, basically, you always want the shutter speed to be double whatever your frame rate is. So I'm shooting at 24 frames per second. Therefore, I want my shutter speed to be 1/50th of a second to get that nice cinematic look, all right? That's the best way. You don't want any choppy footage, and you don't want the shutter to be too slow. So it always should be double whatever the frame rate is. All right, guys, so the sun just rose, and I put an ND16 filter on the Osmo Pocket, and it's just looking really, really good right now. So I'm gonna share with you what's on my screen over here with the ND16 filter. As you can see, it's really blown out right now in the back here, and with the ND16 filter on, you're able to film with the 180 rule at double my shutter speed at 1/50th of a second, and it's the perfect exposure. So having that ND filter really comes in handy even early in the morning at sunrise. Right now, having that ND16 filter is really nice. So the ND4, 8, and 16 are really for early in the morning. And then once the sun rises, you can use the 32 and the 64. Now I'm talking about video. You can use the 32 and the 64 for photo anytime, especially with water, because the 32 and the 64 will make that water nice and smooth. By the way, I think I have a guest over here. Hi, little fella. Bite my finger. Bite my finger. All right, so now that the sun is really nice and it's risen and I have the ND16 filter, I'm gonna do a bunch of filming around here and show you what I get. So after I was done shooting, I gathered my stuff up and then I headed to South Beach later that afternoon. When I got to South Beach, the sun was going down. I put an ND64 Polarizer filter on and I slowed it down to 1 second, because if I slowed down any longer than that, it would be too dark. But the shutter was still slow enough that I got that nice smooth look. And as you can see, because I put my Osmo Pocket on a tripod, the sand remained perfectly sharp because it was still, but the waves were moving. And depending on how fast the waves move, you're gonna get a different look. So if they move super fast, you're gonna see some of the waves. But if they move a lot slower, it's gonna be much smoother and softer. So based on how fast the waves move and how slow my shutter is, will produce that silky smooth look. Remember, in general, the slower the shutter, the more smooth it's gonna look. And the faster the shutter, the more everything's gonna be in focus. Of course, how fast the waves move also factor into that. But I became inspired from this shoot to return back to the city skyline where I was the previous morning and then slow my shutter down to 8 seconds with the ND64 filter on. And because the shutter was open for 8 seconds, it slowed down all the waves going across the ocean to make it look more like a lake. All of these images are JPEGs. You could also shoot in RAW if you want to, DNG RAW, and then edit them. But I just shot in JPEG to show you what it looks like right out of camera, just from using a slow shutter and an ND filter or an ND polarizer filter. And this was the resulting image. The last thing I want to show you is how to take a photo of cars driving by. So I was in South Beach, the sun was going down, it wasn't dark just yet. It looks dark right here because I put an ND16 filter on, so it looks like it's nighttime even though it wasn't. And I set my Osmo Pocket on a tripod and then I took this photo. And notice I set it up for 6 seconds, so a 6-second shutter will make everything go super slow by, and you're gonna get those nice lights as you can see right now. The yellow, the red, and sometimes the white lights from the car all show up because they're moving at such a fast pace. And I have the shutter set to 6 seconds. And also because I have a slow shutter, the car, the building, and everything else is properly exposed. But I couldn't have done it without an ND filter. So I took multiple photos. I set it up in FPV mode. I like FPV mode because you have full control. I put it on timer so the Osmo Pocket wouldn't wiggle. All right, you want to put it on timer so it's going to stay perfectly still on the tripod. Any movement will cause the image to be blurry. And the only thing we want blurry is the lights. Now this van pulled up, and he pulled up the right moment where that tail light was just in front of the car. And as you can see, that red line just goes right across the image, right at the center of the car. Now you have all these other lights. I like them. I saw that this name of this place was Avalon, but I wanted to change it since I was doing a video about Polar Pro filters, I wanted to change that name. So because I had these two photos, I took them together and I combined them in Photoshop, and I changed Avalon to Polar Pro, and then I just cropped in on the image. I made it a little brighter, and this is the final image that you have. Now with cars, it depends on how long that light is in front of you. You can see it was stopped right in front of the car for a little bit. That's why it's brightest right near the passenger window of the car. And the lines are much thinner and in unison as it moved by. So you gotta experiment with that, see what you like. And sometimes you have to combine a couple photos, or you can take multiple photos and pick out the best one. All right guys, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to press that like button. And if you want to pick up some of these ND filters, I left links in the description below. And if you want to get more tutorials, tips about DJI products, about drones, please press that subscribe button. And before I go, remember, siempre pa'lante, nunca para atrás.